Welcome back, everybody. That was a great first session. We've got two more fantastic sessions coming up. Next up, we have a fantastic presentation by Dr. Jamie Reynolds and Danielle Offerman. Their presentation is going to blend a lot of the great technology that we looked at in the first session on virtual consults, along with their proven amazing techniques to deliver high conversion rates and same-day smiles. Our two presenters are not only great and very knowledgeable, but they're great friends of ours and great friends of mine. The first of which is Dr. Jamie Reynolds, who is renowned in the industry for his expertise in practice building and financial management. He's authored a number of articles and speaks nationally and worldwide. Dr. Reynolds earned his degree from University of Michigan and his MS in orthodontics from the University of Detroit Mercy. He's an ABO diplomat and is the first orthodontist to include an insignia case in his ABO recertification exam. In private practice, he lectures nationally and internationally on passive self-ligation in the Damon system, advanced orthodontic technologies, and soft tissue lasers and aligners. He is the co-founder of OrthoFi, and he now serves as the board chairman. Danielle Offerman joined Spillane & Reynolds not long ago, but since she joined in 2016, Danielle has transformed the patient sales experience, putting an emphasis on building value through offering customized, affordable treatment solutions. With over 10 years of experience in automotive sales and product training, Danielle quickly became a leader in conversion and sales development within the greater orthodontic community. She was awarded OrthoFi's top TC for same-day contracts and still holds the #1 ranking in OrthoFi's treatment recommended conversion list. Danielle works with orthodontic practices across the US to improve their TC conversion rates and patient customer experience. I'm happy and honored to welcome Dr. Reynolds and Danielle.
Thanks, Oliver.
Thank you so much, Oliver.
Okay, let's start off by saying thank you to Dr. Waldman for a great presentation. It was really fantastic. Also, thank you to him for sort of being a trailblazer for the virtual side of the consultation house. I'm probably like many of you in that, I was talking to Greg Pellegrim from SmileSnap in January and February about the whole virtual consult process, and I just didn't get it. I said, I don't really see where this fits in the practice. And then COVID-19 came along and kind of hit me upside the head, like maybe it has many of you. And then we've sort of been scrambling to sort of figure out how that fits in our practice since then. What our presentation today is about is less about any one type of consultation, but more about what is the anatomy of what a new patient process looks like, utilizing on any platform. And so we're going to show you how we think about it, the strategy behind it, how we'll walk you through our processes, and we'll show you, many of us are getting back to work now, so we'll show you how it relates to doing in-person patients, and then we'll show you how it pivots by switching a couple of dials to work from a virtual standpoint. And then hopefully you'll be well armed to do either of these at a high level. So Nassim Taleb, maybe you're familiar with his book, The Black Swan. In fact, Danielle and I gave a presentation that included this at the Damon Forum in February. Little did we know that we had a Black Swan event in COVID-19 right around the corner from us. In his book, really bright guy, his book, Anti-Fragile, talks about a fragile event is one that's disproportionately more harmed by a large event than a small event. So if you think about if Danielle were to hit a volleyball at me and it bounced off my head, I'd be embarrassed, but I would respond from that. But if she hits me with a hammer, then there's no more me, right? So a larger event has a disproportionate response. And Taleb talks about how a lack of stressors can increase the fragility of a system. So if you think about orthodontics, for example, for basically the last however long, our profession has had 8,000 people who have been responsible for the tooth straightening of 350 million people. So it's been very easy for us. We've had, even though it feels competitive in our environment, try being a restaurant, right? And so I think it's contributed to us becoming more fragile. He says that, in the English language, at least, there's not really an antonym to fragile. So he has sort of introduced the term anti-fragile. And that's something that thrives and grows when exposed to stressors and volatility. So you can think of the human race as being anti-fragile, where if one or two people, or even a cohort like we have now that contracts a virus, has some fragility built into it, the human race becomes stronger over time. So after reading the book, I started thinking, one, about how our profession with all the competition now is probably ripe for being on the fragile side. And two, what are the things that we can do to help make it anti-fragile?
So, like it or not, we're going to have to get really good at sales and marketing. So, what we're going to do is run through these terms. With marketing, it's the message you put out about why your business, about you, about your business, and why it's important. And in the sales is simply a process of taking a prospective customer and converting them into a customer. And it's not intended to be anything slippery or deceitful here. We're recommending treatment based on need and benefit. So the sales process is just taking the customer and taking the prospective customer and converting them into a customer.
And so we feel like really the nuts and bolts of building anti-fragility into orthodontic profession and an orthodontic practice is to start to understand something that we're not naturally good at and we're not typically taught in the sales, marketing, and customer service process. And then when you look at, your marketing message is, doctors, it's everything from how you present yourself to the way that you describe your treatment to the way your office looks and smells. And all of those are trying to relay to the customer why what you're saying is important and why they should do business with you. And sales is just a process of taking them from not being a customer into making them a customer. And then treatment recommended conversion is the scoreboard. So that's just the measure of how successful your marketing is, your message that you're putting out there, and your sales process and taking someone that you recommend treatment to and bringing them into a customer and a patient. We're going to give you a lecture today on how you could be good at the sales process, but it's not because we were initially good at it, or at least I wasn't. This is pre-Danielle. But this is our stats for conversion from back in 2014 when we first started with OrthoFi. And if you look at our 45-day conversion percentage, it was 35%. And we were feeling like we were a pretty successful office at the time, but we actually, sucked. And so what we've done, though, is over time, we brought in people with outside sales experience like Danielle, who's taught me an enormous amount about sales process. And then as OrthoFi has grown, we've gotten optics on different offices, different processes. We've met and interacted with more business people, and we've been able to evolve our processes to something that works successfully across multiple doctors and multiple treatment coordinators. So every year OrthoFi releases a top 10 conversion percentage board, and there's Danielle up there at the top. And we also have Julie and Melissa and Emily from our office that were all in the top 10. And so we have multiple doctors, multiple treatment coordinators, and all performing at a really high level, not because we were innately good at this. It's because we've worked hard to learn a process, a sequence, and some scripting on how to get good and get good across multiple people. So if we can do that, so can you. And what we're going to do is walk you through all of those things today. So if you think about things, there's really three layers. There's a strategy, why we're thinking the way we do, and that's the foundation we'll build everything on, and then the sequence of the scripting on how we do it. So if you think strategically, you first think about the patient, and then anytime you talk about sales and marketing in a healthcare process, there seems to be the assumption that somehow if you're trying to convert the prospective patient into a patient, there's something shady or unscrupulous or not in the patient's best interest there. And so what I'm here to tell you is that regardless of whether we're talking sales or not, the overwhelming underlying thing is that you have to treat the patient with uncompromised integrity. You can never recommend any treatment that you wouldn't do for yourself or for your family, okay? And that has to be sacrosanct. But the problem with treatment and our perception of treatment is that it's really the results are a threshold motivator. So that means that it just has to be good enough to make the patient happy. And then beyond that, a lot of it makes the orthodontist happy, or at least we're making us happy and the patient doesn't know about it, and it'll help them down the road when their occlusion functions and everything else. So we really, inside the patient, there's actually two different distinct things we need to deal with. One, the clinical excellence that orthodontists have to maintain the gold standard of. If not, we can't sit on our ivory tower and complain about everybody else who's doing orthodontics if we really don't maintain clinical excellence. But we really need to think about the patient as a customer as well. And the customer thinks differently about the orthodontic office and the orthodontic process than we think about from a patient perspective. And they can both equally exist, because a lot of times doctors build all their processes around themselves and what time their tea time is on Thursday or whatever else. And so doctors out in the audience, you're not pictured here. No one has reached down from the heavens and divinely chosen you to be the one and only person that straightens a patient's teeth. And orthodontists get their panties in a bunch if somebody else other than them straightens teeth, when really it's becoming more and more an open marketplace. And we have to consider the patient and not that we're preordained to do the treatment, whether or not it's better for them or not to have us do it. So what we looked at is we wanted to, in business, they do something called Net Promoter Score. So we wanted to find out what the patient, the customer would like. And in orthodontics, there's not really great surveys, or at least the data available for surveys to tell us what the patients are thinking. So we started to think, well, Google and Facebook have surveys out there. So we went and we counted on our team. We went through about 5,000 different Google and Facebook 4- and 5-star reviews across all these offices, which I think many of us can agree are among the top offices in the country and the world. And we tried to categorize what was on those reviews into one word. And so what we found is, above anything else, friendly and professional were the number 1 and number 2 reasons why people would go and put 4- and 5-star post on Google. And so we want to think about that. What does that really mean?
Being friendly and professional, we can have lots of thoughts about that. Maybe as a treatment coordinator, we need to connect on a level of something that we have in common. I think mostly what I've learned throughout my time is that I can be really friendly, but I can also be very driven or scripted throughout the steps of the exam. So folks are looking for us to value their time, and as friendly and receptive as they may be to conversations, it's not necessarily what they came in looking for. So being friendly and being professional can be very effective as long as we are being very conscious of our patient's time.
And I think many times we think about being friendly or professional selfishly from our own perspective. So if I want to make small talk with people, I'm going to talk to them about beach volleyball or Michigan football, and when really they could care less about that. They want to talk about themselves. From a doctoring standpoint, if I want to be professional, I want to look the part, same with the TCs. I want to smile at them, but I also want to tell them where the mesial-buccal cusp goes or how the physiology behind a herpes appliance works. And they don't really care about that. You need to let them ask to that. So friendly and professional works insofar as driving to find out what the patient is in your office for, and less about using your own personal experiences to create chit chat with them. And so in football, they say defense wins championships. And so unless you're in Detroit where the Lions are, then nothing wins championships. But I think the enemy of friendly and professional in the orthodontic consultation is waiting until you get to the point of sale when you're about to sell someone something. And then they say, hey, what about this? As soon as you've asked for money, and then you have to explain yourself defensively. And so once they make an objection or they don't understand the value of your practice, you're responding with your answer, which seems very defensive. And so it instead of coming off friendly and professional, you come off as salesy. And that's the absolute enemy of what we want to do in this process. And it's totally unnecessary. So if you're being told that you're salesy, you're doing it wrong. And what we would suggest is that instead of waiting until they ask the questions that many of us know you're going to ask, you answer the questions proactively.
What we've learned over time is that through sequence scripting, through strategy, sequence, and scripting, we have learned to be able to proactively overcome objections so that we can be more on the offense than on the defense. So all our scripting highlights the points that create obstacles in a lot of cases. OrthoFi does a really great job identifying a lot of the reasons why people don't start treatments. Essentially, we've taken those reasons, we understand what the objections are going to be so that we choreograph our exams around that. So we are able to proactively build value and also overcome objections proactively. And it's important because you want to keep a flow to what you're doing. So these two big components allow us to keep a flow, so we're not forcing anything. And I really liked this this picture here. Flowing will get you places, forcing never could. And I just think that that says a lot about our processes. So when we get to selling unparalleled value, we have to be proactive listeners. We have to keep our mouths quiet and listen to what they want. And you have to make sure that you're setting the expectations for the patients. They know what the next steps are going to be. You want to make sure that you're thorough through your team and your tour and your technology as well. You're also going to ask calibrated questions so you understand where your patient is coming from.
And so calibrated questions would be questions that don't generate a yes or no answer.
And then we also can offer a very flexible, very intelligent, affordable financing. And those all add value to our practice. And of course, the same day start, that's where all of this leads to, is our same day start. So as I mentioned earlier, OrthoFi has done a really great job at identifying the objections that we normally come across. The first one would be financial, affordability, scheduling, insurance, dental work, and a second opinion. If we think about second opinions, we tend to maybe react a little bit differently. Maybe we are, the red carpet has been rolled out a little bit further, but if we treat everybody like they're a second opinion, then you really never have to alter your sequencing throughout the exam at all. So we have a ton of second opinions, and it's crazy to think that you don't. I'm sure there's anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 second, third, fourth opinions out there. So we just like to treat everybody the exact same way, regardless of where they're coming from.
And I think it's pretty common for us to treat people one way, and then when we find out that they're a second opinion, then we start to treat them a different way. And we think that's really unproductive. One, because you should be treating everyone the same by building value and managing their objections. And two, many of them are second or third or fourth opinions and they don't tell you. And so if you treat everyone the same and we assume that everyone is a second opinion, it's actually really liberating, because it doesn't introduce that stress component into the process by making you think that somehow you're up against it, because we're competing all the time against a website, a virtual consult, Smile Direct Club. We just don't know it. So assume everyone is a second opinion all the time, and it'll be liberating. So we're going to go through some of the financial strategy for you that we've learned from OrthoFi. One of the things people think about when they hear second opinion is that, oh my gosh, I better lower my price. And so what we know from OrthoFi data, and many of you maybe seen me show this before, once you get over $5,400, there's no difference between price and conversion percentage. It becomes unlinked. And in fact, the data that we shows the lowest price offices, which represent these little bubbles, as being among the lowest conversion percentage. So we know that if anything, lower price can negatively impact conversion, or at the very least that there's more to conversion percentage besides overall price. We also know that there's a linear and direct relationship between the percentage of patients you start the same day to your conversion percentage. So if you're trying to increase your conversion percentage, the first place to start and the most effective avenue is to become better at the process of same-day convenience for your patients. And so I think from a treatment coordinator, and from a doctor's perspective, you think that in the TC room, better performance equals growth, which is true. Growth is one component, but we're not just going to talk about being TC 101, right? We want to be TC 999. And there's also two more really critical components to how you pencil your deals and how you manage your patients in that room. And that's managing your cash flow and managing your risk. So it's nice to get some dollars to be able to pay your payroll or your Invisalign lab bill. And it's also nice to be paid for what you're doing. And so historically, when we make A, B, and C grade patients, or we set our down payment only at $2,000, we have a low threshold for growth because that's stopping people from coming in. We've got good cash flow because we're getting a lot of money up front, and we have low risk. If you want to grow, though, many times people do what we call rote flexibility. So they'll say, well, I'm going to go from doing $2,000 down to try to inject growth into the practice, and we'll do $0 down and $99 a month, or $199 down and $199 a month. And that really opens the floodgates. So you grow, but then your cash flow goes in opposite directions and your risk goes up. So what we're going to suggest is that if you know the way the financial strategy works, you can manage these levers so that you can have your cake and eat it too. So there's a better way. So again, reviewing some numbers, these little bubbles here are different credit scores. So you can see the 400 credit score, 500, 600. And I think we've all assumed that people with better credit score for running a credit check they have more money and they'll be willing to put more money down, which these bubbles show. But what they also show is that all the credit tiers except the very top want the down payment to be under $1,000 a month if they're picking. And the really interesting thing is if you look at the monthly payment, all the credit tiers except the very lowest want between $185 and $200 a month, or $210 a month. So if you're offering more than $1,000 down payment and you're not offering payments between $185 and $210 a month, you're pretty much not offering what anyone out there wants if you let them choose. And so we're going to have this little sound effect in there. We know most of you are at home. Your kids are probably yelling in the background and whatever. So this is when you hear this, it's pay attention. And so one of the things we learned at the beginning when we started messing with OrthoFi is we hypothesized that no one in Orthodontics is charging interest. We hypothesized that just like every other business in the world, people would charge interest. People would pay interest. And what we learned is that about 12% of all the plans across OrthoFi will actually choose on their own an interest-bearing account. And on average, the payment in OrthoFi is around $5,000. So it actually shows about a $500 increased fee for these plans, so long as you allow them to put $500 down and $150 a month. So people will pay interest. Another interesting thing is that a few years ago, we made a modification to the slider so that people would say, well, they may pay interest in Detroit, but they won't pay interest where I'm from. So I want the ability to turn that off. So we allowed certain clients to turn off the feature that would put interest on the slider. And what we learned is earlier this year, we crunched all the numbers and learned that the conversion percentage, if you allowed interest on your slider, was 68% across the whole 350 practices, and only about 10% lower for people without interest. And the reason we think for that is that the interest allows people, which is about that 12% of the people that we showed you before that choose interest-bearing accounts, to find a plan that they can afford, but they might not communicate to you that they can't afford your options. And the slider allows them to do that. So it's really important to allow the OrthoFi they have an optimized algorithm now that is called Optimize to make it easy. And you just need to let that work. Again, if you're looking at how you manage your cash flow, thinking about zero down and $99 a month pigeonholes everyone into thinking that that's all that they can afford. When these green arrows, these are all plans that people have selected. And over here, someone selected $4,500 down and $50 a month. And over here, somebody selected, $750 a month and $250 down. So we don't know what people are going to pick. They pick it all over the place. But what these dots are all are plans that are financially favorable for our offices. We make more money up front than we need. And so the way to do it is, as opposed to worrying about this one dot, so people worry about this dot right here that paid them $250 down and didn't wind up paying all the money and screwed them out of their lab bill. They worry about this one dot, okay? But smart business people worry about all the dots. And they manage their portfolio like a bank would, managing the risk across all of the different transactions. So what you should do is allow people to pick what they want, give them incentives to pay more money up front, and then use that to let all these other people who have financially unfavorable terms to start. And that's how you grow your practice. Because in reality, the one thing that mitigates or that creates the most risk in your practice is the credit tier. So as the credit tier becomes lower, especially in credit tier level 5 and 6, you have higher risk. So if you're going to do extended financing, you want to get a credit check so that you can modify what plans and where interest kicks in with particular groups based on the risk. The other thing you want to do if you want to mitigate risk is you want to get a payment method on file. So these red arrows show you for tier 1 credit, either as a percent of accounts or a percent of AR or a percent of total dollars. Tier 1 credit are 10 times or more likely to become delinquent if you don't have a payment method on file. So the green has payment method, the blue does not. And we're seeing that even more exacerbated in COVID time. So now our payment on file really hasn't changed how many people are paying, but the delinquency for no payment on file has gone higher. So knowing what you're dealing with from a credit perspective and getting a payment method on file are hugely important to mitigate your risk. And so if you do things the right way, you can increase growth, you can manage cash flow, and you can mitigate risk. It doesn't mean you have zero risk, but it means you have the right amount of risk to facilitate the growth so that you're winning financially.
With sequence and scripting, comes the flow that we're looking for. So as we go to our from call to consult to contract to collection, we can see the sequence in which we can process through, from the inbound call to the online forms, which the patients love to be able to fill out at home, and then the eligibility check as well. We can do the insurance verification from the comfort of their own home. And so then by the time they get in to the exam, we have a lot of the important information to be able to offer them same day convenience because of all of the steps that we were able to put into before the exam. Then from the exam, we get to present the flexible and intelligent, affordable payment options.
If you are going to be flexible with your financing, you want to do some sort of credit verification so you can mitigate the risk like we talked about before. And then you get to a payment presentation. They either say yes, which we all hope for, or and they proceed along to sign documents, deal with insurance and place appliances, or they go into some sort of management. And so all of the things going forward are steps in the sequence that are built upon the strategy of treating the customer the right way, being proactive in creating value and managing objections, and then managing with the smart, intelligent financial principles. So as we walk through the sequence, there's really the call to the consult to the contract to the collections. We're going to break that down into each segment, and then we're going to show you how we do things with a real patient, real live patient that you see in person, and virtual patients are real too, but that we're dealing with virtually. We'll show you how we're doing that as well. But all of it is based on the same underlying strategy with slight tweaks to the technology available. So starting in the first bucket with call to consult.
So we're going to see patients two different ways now moving forward, which is something we hadn't been able to offer patients before. We're either going to see them in one of our beautiful locations. This is our West Bloomfield location that Dr. Reynolds is at right now. Or we're going to see our patients virtually. We're going to see them in the convenience of their own home, as we're doing now as we're going through this COVID-19 shutdown. So one way or another, these fine folks that see us in the office or virtually are going to run into our front desk team. Now, this is a squad unlike any other team. These guys really get it done with, they help so much in the scripting and the setting expectations for our new patient exams. Now, I wouldn't be able to do, or we wouldn't be able to be as productive as we are in our exams if our front desk team didn't set us up for success. How do they do that? They do that through scripting. That's what we are all doing. It gives us a really good outline of things that we should be asking. And you guys can stop for a moment and take a snapshot of this scripting. Of course, it's always a work in progress, especially now that we're seeing virtual exams. We really haven't been back in the office to update our SOPs, but we plan to. Really, the meat of this particular scripting happens to be in the second page here, right? And this is really what helps the TC be able to start that patient the same day, because that's what our front desk is saying. You're going to bring Jimmy into the exam, and we're going to take some digital pictures. We're going to do an ultra low dose X-ray. You're going to sit down with our amazing treatment coordinator and the doctor, and we're going to create a customized treatment plan for you. And if Jimmy's ready to get started for orthodontics, we've seen time in our schedule that day to get him started. So that gets the mom or the dad's mind kind of setting that expectation that we're going to probably making some decisions today if Jimmy is ready to get going. If they didn't do this, I think my job would be far more difficult. I'd get more of a deer in the headlight look than kind of the nodding, okay, let's do this, because by the time I've said it, they've heard it. It's very much part of our process. Thank you. Right, a lot of value there. So proactive value creation, how do you do that? You're friendly. You're going to recognize your buying signals as well. You're offering in your scheduling appointments.
And from a buying signal, that can be as simple as, do you take my insurance? Which doesn't mean, do you take my insurance? It means I'm interested in orthodontic treatment and I'm concerned about how I'm going to be able to afford it. And I'd like to know what role my insurance will be playing in that. And so these are the things, if you're answering the phone, that you need to be able to recognize.
Why do you want to offer and schedule that appointment? I'm just going to rewind for just a quick moment, because you can't really create all of the value in your practice if they never walk in the door. So you definitely want to get that scheduled one way or another, whether it's virtually or whether they're walking in the door, and you want to get that appointment scheduled. Always compliment the office, compliment the doctor, say what you love about something. I always say, I know 3 good things about pretty much everything that happens, and it can be relatable to a lot of things. So make sure your excitement is coming through the phone or through that virtual consult, that patient has chosen the best place to be. So we also have to work with overcoming objections, right? And we don't want to do that at the point of sale, because then it seems more defensive than offensive. But if you if you can proactively overcome objections by setting expectations, one of those things would be a confirmation call. On our confirmation call, we are setting that expectation. The doctor, we're so excited to see you. Our doctor is going to review and customize your treatment plan for you. After we do our ultra low dose x-ray, we're going to make sure we're setting those expectations along the ways. We're telling them why it's important to fill out their OrthoFi form so we can better help them when they come into the office. And we're always talking about same day start, same day convenience, because people don't think that actually happens. They are amazed in a lot of cases that we can offer same day convenience.
And when you're teeing up the confirmation call, I think it's also important to let them know, to expect it. So if their phone rings, many of us will screen that. And so if they are expecting it, it doesn't seem as pushy versus if they just sort of seem cold called. The second thing is you want to let them know, hey, that your treatment coordinator is going to reach out with some really important information that's going to make your appointment much easier for you. And so make sure to take that call, right? And so that, again, foams the runway for them to expect that call rather than that seeing strange when they call right away.
This is the call that you can overcome, answer questions, start overcoming objections, putting people's mind at ease. There's so much great movement forward in the flow process. If you can get them on the phone, you can answer all their questions ahead of time.
So, we're following in Dr. Waldman's footsteps with the Smile Snap process. So as we were looking at this, we looked at all the different virtual products, and we really like the workflow behind this. Our website, is set up with the same thing, although I took some notes on customizing the chat box over there. We do have a chat box over here on the right side of our screen. It used to pop up as a big rectangle like the Smile Snap box does, but it really blew up the feel of our website. So you can, for those of you that have a chat company, you can ask them to make your chat icon smaller. I think everyone today is used to chat icons. They know where to go for it if they need it, and so that it's there. Second thing they can do is interact with this box over here. Are you a current patient? Yes or no? And we may switch it to Dr. Waldman's technique. The other thing we do with our chat, and if we're speaking about chat, is that we switch from the new leads that come in from the chat that we would drive towards getting their information and having one of the people from our office call them. I agree with Dr. Waldman that there's all kinds of a variety of warmth of those leads. Some are really cold, some are warmer. So a lot of times we get someone that gets on the chat and is interested in exam, and then we get a treatment coordinator to chase them around and try to schedule them for a while, wasting their time. Or we'd book them for an after-school exam they wouldn't show up for. And so what we're doing now is we're having our chat drive the lead. Say, look on the left-hand side of the screen. The first step in the process is to fill out this this evaluation, submit some pictures, and so then we've forced them to jump over a very small hurdle, but a hurdle there. And so I think it really will eliminate you from chasing around a lot of the people. Maybe it's a 10-year-old who's on the chat that after their parents are at bedtime, or somebody who really isn't all that interested. You want to kind of screen those out of the way by having a small hurdle without having to screen many people away.
So through our Smile Snap pop-up on our website, we go right into the questions, as Dr. Waldman had mentioned earlier. And as you said, you can make this whatever you want and whatever you feel is important. We felt the main contact information was the most important setup for us. So they'll fill this small bit of information out, and then they are sent this link here, and it then sends them on their phone over to Smile Snap There is where they can take 5 pictures of their teeth. SmileSnap has a sweet video that shows the folks simply how to take the teeth and what pictures that we're looking for, and we get some really great stuff. This is the dashboard, as Dr. Waldman had covered as well. These are folks that have not submitted their SmileSnap photos yet. SmileSnap, there aren't a ton of levels in regards to communication. So what we've done is, though we've kind of intervened with some scripting as well. So when a patient of ours has not filled out SmileSnap yet, we lead into our own personalized texting to them. And that's, kind of maybe igniting some of the excitement that they shared and they just hadn't gotten to the pictures yet. So we want to make sure they know we're interested in them as well. So we're taking this personal view, and we're interested in talking about your smiles. We're talking about how easy it's going to be with the 5 selfies. We're telling them not to have to be a professional, but please ensure that they aren't blurry, so the doctor can give them a quick assessment. We use this to engage and get people to start. So from here, we hope to get some pictures so that we can start treatment planning.
Yeah, and if I wasn't clear before, there's historically the way to enter your practice has been through the phones. And then we add a little button on the website that says schedule a consultation, which I think works with moderate efficacy. And so now we have another way that you can enter the practice by clicking on the SmileSnap icon. If they do call and they're interested in a virtual consultation instead of an in-person consultation, what we'll have our front desk do is they'll pull up our website and they'll enter that. We used to say, hey, go to our website and click on this. What we'll do now is we'll have our front desk team enter the first few steps of the personal information into that chat box so they get prompted with the text, which you saw before. And then we also go outside of their drip sequence, and then we'll add some customized text like this one from our treatment coordinator to augment the process and make it more personal, start to build that relationship.
And you'll see here on that last slide that this is obviously for the times. While we have not been seeing patients in the office, we are offering a $750 down payment match to our new patients and our existing patients. However, once we're back in the office, that portion of the courtesy is going to be eliminated. Just like Dr. Waldman had pointed out, we get some really great pictures from these patients. I was super impressed with this kid's pictures, and they must have that game Shout Out at home is all I could figure on here. So this right here gives us all the information we need in order to contact this patient. It's a really warm lead at this point. If we click down on that visit scheduled button that's blue right now, it pops and populates all of their information, their email address, their phone number, the way to get a hold of them. So it makes it really helpful to move forward.
So once we have in the hopper, whether they're coming in virtually or into the office, we send them out a package that Dan Kennedy, if you know the marketing legend, calls a shock and awe package. It basically is something that shows up in the mail that differentiates you from everyone else. This is ours now. We're in the process of redoing it to include a little more information about virtual consultations. But basically, again, we have it based on the underlying strategy, and we try to make it really simple. There's a tab in there that says start here. Number 1, complete your health history form. So we'll get to why that's important in a minute. Number 2, get ready to get started, and foaming the runway for same day starts. We always reserve time to get you started the same day. And then orthodontics does cost money. When twins are born, you ask the parents what they're worried about, and their number 1 answer is weddings, and their number 2 answer is braces, right? So I think in orthodontic offices, we run away from the fact that braces are expensive and they cost money, or aligners or tooth straightening orthodontic treatment in general. So everyone knows it. We might as well talk about it. And what people really want to know is, can they afford it? Many people don't even know that orthodontic offices offer payment plans. So tell them to start thinking about it. Consider a down payment and monthly payment that works for your budget, and you'll do the rest. So every step along the way, you're kind of tuning in their antennas to get them thinking the way that you would like them to think, to consider their options.
This is one of my most favorite books ever. There's a guy I know who wrote it a couple years ago, and I'm so glad that he did. This is a book, World Class Smiles, made in Detroit, that Dr. Reynolds put together. It's more educational. It doesn't really lead in one direction or another, but it really helps folks who don't know much about orthodontics understand orthodontics at a much simpler understanding of it. So when our shock and awe packages are sent out, these books are also sent out, but I don't shy away from giving them to my patient again if they are going for a second opinion. And the reason for that is that, in the book, there's some really great information, right? And on one of the, in one of the chapters, there's 11 things that you should consider before orthodontic treatment. And so I fold over the page and I give it to them, and I want them to see it because I want them to go into the next office, and I want the expectation to be there that those 11 things this next office should offer as well, because I know I've already offered those things to him. All of my scripting surrounds the 11 things that are most important to patients when choosing an orthodontist. So I really love handing out this book because it's a great tool and an easy read for folks to pay attention to.
And the book isn't anything that anyone on the call couldn't write. It's just a matter of doing it. And I believe in the concept of authority marketing. So in writing a book, your perception is that you know more about your topic than if you don't. And we found it to be really helpful. So we have these books lying all over the place in all the offices. And, there's a company called Advantage Media that we work with for our book that I'm a big believer in. I don't have any, financial interest in that, but I really like the concept. And I think the whole authority marketing concept is going to be important in differentiating us between our less qualified competitors as we move forward in a crowded marketplace. So then the forms also go out digitally. So you've got the shock and awe package that's showing up, that's differentiating your practice and help build the relationships and managing both value creation and objections. Second thing is the forms, and the forms are really cool. They redid these a little while ago to be more mobile friendly. They have a few different components. The HIPAA and privacy is nice, so that's taken care of. The patient information is nice, and that helps with some of the financial algorithms. The medical history, we want to look at as doctors. But the big thing is the insurance, okay? Because we know that one of the objections is insurance. So if they can fill out and get their insurance information before they come in the office, that allows the treatment coordinators to show them how much out of pocket is. Because they don't care how much it costs, even though that's what they say. They care how much it costs them, right? And so not knowing the insurance information is incredibly detrimental to your ability to convert the patient. So this is a really great feature, and everything gets handled automatically in front of it and flows, which we'll show you later into the slider.
So this is OrthoFi's dashboard. This is, the home base for us every morning. This is what we are looking at. So we know exactly where our patients are at. If they haven't filled out their insurance the morning of the exam, then we're giving them a quick call. Hey, fill out the insurance, or we're going to pre-populate it for them. So OrthoFi has set this up that we can really refine our processes all the way around the patient and their needs and their wants as well. So
yeah, and if you see that ahead sign, the little I box there isn't green, then that tips off the treatment coordinator that they need to manage that. So, in the marketing automation world, there's things like Infusionsoft and email drip sequences and text drip sequences that are really cool sounding, and they are effective, and OrthoFi includes some of that. But this is, I think, one of the most interesting things that we'll talk about today. So OrthoFi sends out the forms to everyone, okay? And then it has like an automated reminder so that as you get closer, it will remind you to fill out your forms. And so the bottom average of all the offices in OrthoFi is 71% fill the forms out ahead of time. So the reminders work. So you get about 70% of the people who fill those forms out ahead of time. And of those people, 7% of the patients wind up same day starting who filled them out in those offices that have the lowest level. Now there's some offices, the highest offices are 82%. So they're a little more than 10% more of the forms have filled out. But the really interesting thing is the people in OrthoFi who have the highest level of form fills, their same day start percentage is 74%, over 10x higher than the people who had the lower form fill. And the reason for that is that the people with the higher form fill percentage are playing offense. Instead of letting the automated sequence do it all for them, they're reaching out and doing a confirmation call so they can start building a relationship and setting the expectations. And that pays enormous dividends in same day start percentage, over 10x. So one of the most important things in this whole process is a confirmation call. So we're going to show you our treatment coordinator, Melissa, who's going to go through a confirmation call. What our process is that we'll call them, and if they don't answer, then instead of leaving a voicemail, we'll hang up and then turn around and do a video text, and we'll text it to them. And so if we can get a hold of them, that's first, but rather than leaving a voicemail, we now know that people will check their text messages a lot more likely. And this differentiates our office from the competitors because it's not likely that someone has a video text show. So we'll show you that through.
Good morning. My name is Melissa, and I'm one of the treatment coordinators with Spillane and Reynolds Orthodontics. We have Joey scheduled to come see us tomorrow morning for his complimentary consultation at 8 a.m. in our Rochester office. And I just wanted to set some expectations for you so that you're fully prepared when you bring him in. We are going to take an ultra low dose x-ray on him, take some digital pictures of his teeth, and then we're going to let you know what we see, what's recommended. We'll address all your concerns and what you guys are looking for. Please make sure all decision makers are available for this visit. If treatment's recommended, you're going to know exactly what your out-of-pocket will be. And we always offer same-day convenience. So if Joey does want to do braces and wants to put them on tomorrow, we can accommodate that for you, okay? Thank you for doing the forms in OrthoFi. That's going to make things a lot easier for you. We'll be able to verify your dental insurance so that you know what your benefit will be. And then if you have any questions or concerns, please give us a call. Let us know, 248-651-8860. Or if you're unable to make the appointment, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a fantastic day, and I look forward to meeting you guys. Bye.
So when you have a confirmation call or a video confirmation call, the end of it should be warm and fuzzies, right? Melissa does an excellent job. She's super friendly, but she's not friendly telling him about anything personal. She's telling him about, hey, these are the things that you should be ready for. These are the expectation settings. Here's some things to think about, creating value, managing objections, and all with a smile on her face. An excellent job. So the components here, oh, Danielle, for a smile snap for a virtual.
So this is going to be a little bit differently because our virtual exam is going to go a little bit differently. About 10 minutes. So this is a text confirmation or this is a video confirmation. We've found that even with our video or our virtual consultation, sending a video confirmation can be effective as well as it is with a regular office visit. So setting that expectation, we're looking forward to seeing them as well, reminding them about the flexible and affordable payment options, and also letting them know what the next steps are going to be. And that's that they're going to receive a link about 10 minutes before their appointment to bring them into our virtual waiting room. And that's where I'm going to come and pick them up. From there, we're going to talk any concerns, and then we're going to grab the doctor as well.
And so one of the things we say in here is we mention a down payment match. We won't be doing that once we're able to see the patients in person. And if you have calls on any of that stuff, we'd be glad to talk through it, questions at the town hall later. So the basic goals, Danielle, are?
Confirmation calls, proactively creating value and overcoming objections. And we do that through, discussing the value of forms and making sure that the decision makers are there. And you're making sure you're complimenting your office as well as your doctor and your team. You're building value this whole time. You're talking about financials, how things can be intelligently affordable and flexible and what people are going to expect out of their pocket. To consider the down payment and the monthly payments so they can start getting their heads wrapped around how they're going to make this work and how we can help them work. They're ready to make a decision. And then the same day convenience as well. If we can offer everything in the same bundle, they're staying that same day and they're really loving that convenience. OrthoFi has made our job very easy to streamline what's important to our patients. And our patients fill out a customer summary essentially about the things that are important to them, the length of payment, the comfort during treatment. So we're getting a lot of information about our patients before we even see them walk in the door. And because we're watching these and we're looking at these, once we make our confirmation call and we see them in the office, we're talking about the things that were important to them on this results page, right? We want to make sure that we're designing our flow around the things that are most important for them. And as a salesperson, if you've got other salespeople out there, what a gift this is to be able to have everything spelled out for you. And then on the other end of things, being able to provide excellent orthodontic care and do it confidently.
So the next part of the sequence, we've gone from call to consult. So let's talk about from consult to contract.
So, right, we're going to look at this two different ways. Dr. Waldman made a good point earlier about the convenience of the virtual exam and the value there. And what people love about that is that they're getting immediate attention and they no longer have to wait for an appointment. So when we start talking about building value in your practice, we have to think of value a different way now. she is very happy at home with her child, and we're developing a relationship. She never has to leave her house. So that's creating value there. And then there's the other side of things. How do we create value in the office? Well, one of the ways we do that is we take care of our patients, and we make sure that they're comfortable with coffee and warm cookies while they're there. So we're always thinking about the things.
We may be putting on hold for the moment, consider the circumstances. But Danielle, do you want to? What the coffee and the cookies are sort of the start of our office tour. So do you want to kind of walk them through both the in-person and then the differences for the virtual tour that you do to sort of teach people about our office?
Sure, absolutely. So what we've learned is that the in-person tour and the virtual tour doesn't really have to be that different. There's probably a little bit more work in it when you have to do it virtually than when you're in person. However, it runs the same way, and our tour looks a lot like this. So our patient walks in the door. Obviously, we're expecting them. We're meeting them and greeting them by name. Our front desk is amazing at making sure people feel welcome and warm. We have her TC will walk up, introduce themselves, and then at that very point, let them know what the next steps are going to be. So my name is Danielle, and I'm a treatment coordinator here with Reynolds Orthodontics. Now, I understand this is your first time here in the office. May I take you around the place to get you comfortable? Yep, everyone agrees, but that's where we're headed. And then we highlight those things that make us stand out from the other offices. Our iPad station, our massage chairs, our reception area, our warm cookies, our hot coffee, Starbucks coffee. And then, we show them where the sign-in station is, and we let them start to envision themselves in our office. When you start to see us on a more regular basis, you're going to come right over here. Your mom's probably going to go over to the massage chair, but you come right over here, type in your name, your cute little face is going to appear right there, and then you're going to have a seat right behind the fish tank. And we as a family walk all the way through. Our clinic is really great about having their head on a swivel, so they know when we're coming through, and we're very warm and very welcoming because we want people to be very comfortable in our office. So we point out the waiting bench. Why is that short, you ask? Because you never wait very long to see one of our amazing doctors. Why do I tell people that? Because I want people to know that we value their time. I'm being offensive rather than defensive. I'm telling people things that maybe they're wondering about, but they don't have to ask me about. So I'm overcoming objections as we walk all the way through. This is our clinic. This is where we make our big, beautiful, amazing smiles. That's Dr. Hines. This is one of our lead technicians, Jamie. Like we walk all the way through. We show them the brushing station. We show them our on-site lab. And this doesn't take a lot of time. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a fast talker. So we can motion through this, and it's all designed to end up essentially at the first part of the diagnostic part of the exam. We walk by the lab and I tell them, whatever it is about your office. I know my office, we have a lot of amazing technology and an amazing team, and there's so many offices out there like that. Whatever your high points are, whatever sets you apart from your other office, that's what you're encompassing in your tour. We have an on-site lab. Why do I share that with people? Because I want people to know we're not outsourcing anything. But come to be, if you're outsourcing something, we outsource to the most amazing lab. So however it is that you can flip the script so that that patient knows they're being taken care of, is the best policy. So then we walk through and we take the low-dose x-ray, and I point out the technology of that x-ray machine, that it's 3D. We can see everything, including airways. Why am I saying all those things? Because this little peanut's pretty narrow and pretty constricted, and if I can show mom and the doctor can show mom the airway here, that's pretty phenomenal technology in our book, right? We walk through and we start taking pictures from there. But by the time we walk around and we're back into the office, what would you like to drink? We get them all settled in and we continue the process. But we really don't skip a beat in the process, and it's not intended to take that long. And with the virtual exams, similar way, it's talking great about your team, your patients, what to expect. In fact, we're going to have some tour videos available for online use as well for each of our offices moving forward, so folks can see the office before they even walk into it as well.
The moral here is that, Danielle is being friendly while surgically choosing every single word that she has to walk down the pathway to the goal, which is to, number one, build value for the office, show all the little things that we may take for granted in our office and why they're important to that patient in choosing us over someone else. She's also working to manage the objections along the way. And then the questions, she's constantly being friendly, but probing them and asking some open-ended questions, calibrated questions to try to get to the bottom of why that person is there to see us and what might be in the way or an obstacle for them to sort of make them decide not to get treatment in our office. And so really, if the ultimate situation would be to have all of the objections identified for that patient by the time the TC presents the treatment plan. Okay, and that way you can tailor everything to them. And you can't do that without asking questions. A lot of times, TCs, the exams are getting shorter and shorter. It used to be over an hour, and then it's an hour. We do 45 minutes. Sometimes 45 minutes is not long enough when you have a patient that's really chatty or really tough one. Sometimes it's way too long when you have someone that either no shows and it wastes the 45 minutes, or you have someone that's not ready. Sometimes it's just right. So there's a balance there, and don't worry, your office should build some insulation into the TC process where if you do have a patient that's recommended, it does take a little longer, someone else can start your next patient. But if you're chronically spending more than an hour doing your exam, I think you should really look at the friendliness component of your tour and of the way that you manage patients. And are a lot of the conversations you're having productive for what you're doing, or is it more just being friendly or telling them about yourself? So really consider that when you're thinking about the time required. A lot of value brought there. So there's really 4 outcomes that happens when you get into the exam process and the consultation.
I think once Dr. Kozlowski pointed this out to me last year when I was in his office, everything just made so much more sense for me. There are really only 4 different ways that this exam is going to go, right? But either way, 4 ways you look at it, we still have to figure out how to build that value, either in the same day start or in the projected start down the road in 6 months or 12 months or 3 years. So it's really important to understand the different paths that these exams are going to go. So the first example would be, the patient's not ready, nor is the doctor. So, what do we focus on in this exam? We focus on anticipating treatment if it's necessary. If the doctors say, we're just not ready now, but we're going to be ready in the future. But we have a patient who's like, no, it's not going to happen. So we need to start to educate and help the patient understand why orthodontic treatment would benefit them. So there's a lot of education from the doctor and the TC to the patient. You just don't want to say no, and then we'll see you later. You need to help your patients. They've come to you because you're an expert and you're a professional. Right. So then what happens if the doctor says no and the patient wants yes, right? We're just not ready. So we've had tons of tears shed because we don't want to we don't want kids in treatment sooner than they need to be. And we tell parents that all the time, and it really does put their minds at ease. But, overcoming that disappointed patient, be it an adolescent or an adult, we have to explain to them why they're not ready yet and why they will be ready soon and how we're going to help them when they're ready. And the reasons why they're not ready. The teeth haven't erupted. It's too soon. You're going to end up in braces longer than you need to be in braces. Let's make this short and sweet.
So this is, for the doctors, this is where you really can step in and build value for people coming forward. So for 2 different reasons. One, we've all had the patient that maybe they were told they needed an expander or a twin blocker or some sort of earlier treatment, or maybe that some other person is ready to get started with them and you're not quite ready. And so you need to spend a little bit of time helping the patient understand why they're not ready yet. Because I think there's the component of, that's great, we're not ready, but also the fear from the parent standpoint that, hey, am I going to mess something up by waiting too long? And that's, as doctors, where we can step in and build value for them and let them know it's okay and understand the reasoning why we're deciding to wait. The other thing that you want to do, the second thing, is that you want to start looking into the crystal ball and letting them know what to expect, right? So we're doing the proactive objection management, setting those expectations. So we'll say, well, it looks like next time he's going to be ready, or maybe it looks like 2 years from now. And so you want to set that expectations. And especially if it's going to be next time, you want to build in the, hey, he's not ready today, but it looks like Johnny might be ready at the next visit. And so we're going to go ahead and schedule for your next consultation. And we know you're busy, so we'll also set aside some time to get you started that day. And so your patients that come into the office and ultimately start treatment, those recall patients, your conversion should be in the 90+%, because you should be telling them ahead of time exactly what to expect before they come in, so that when they come in, they understand. And in fact, sometimes the tooth doesn't fall out as fast as you thought and they're not ready. You should be dealing with a disappointed patient at that point who is expecting treatment that day rather than the other. The third thing is that even though our referrals from other professionals are decreasing, many of us still do have doctors that refer us patients to our office. And so if we're not careful, then the patient who's very busy or the parent is going to leave the office feeling like the doctor who referred them has wasted their time. And so that's really bad for everyone involved. And so you want to make sure that if you do work with, if they're coming from another dentist, that you compliment them, thank them for referring. Just to let you know, it was really smart of Dr. Ross to send them over, because even though we're not ready for treatment now, this allows us great optics and how to watch your growth and development, and we'll be able to make a much more informed decision than we would have been next time, right? And it's always better safe than sorry. So we're really glad to see you. And we want to make sure you thank Dr. Ross for sending you over, because it was important. And so you want to build the value of the dentist so that you can continue that relationship, because no dentist likes a parent to go back and be like, why'd you send me over there? They weren't even ready.
But also, if you don't mind, Dr. Reynolds, this, the patient's not ready yet, or the patient's, we're not recommending treatment yet. Treatment coordinators should not hesitate to tell people what to anticipate financially, because we have to give these folks the benefit of the doubt for them to be able to spend the next 3, 4, 6, or 12 months preparing for this financially. So if you tell them about HSA and FSA accounts, if you help educate them, because you're the professional, that's who they've come to see, set them up, and they're gonna trust you and rely on you, and then you're gonna become a resource to them moving forward. But definitely tell them what to anticipate cost-wise so they can start to prepare, and there's no deer in the headlight next time you see them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think, we used to get really specific and show them the exact payment plans that we don't do now, but we do start talking about ways to help them afford treatment. So it looks like you're gonna be ready for treatment next time. So, things are changing all the time, but if you do have the ability to use an FSA or an HSA account, make sure you talk to people, because that's a great way to save the tax money on it. And then if you do have the ability to opt into dental or orthodontic coverage, now might be the time to check into that, because sometimes there's a waiting period. So if you can make a combination of a health savings account or a flex spending account in insurance, that's the easiest and best way to afford treatment. And so then, Danielle, doctors, yes, patients, yes. This is the easy one, right?
Yeah, that's the best day ever. Yeah, everyone's staying to braces. Definitely. What else do you say about that? Everything's great. Yes and yes. It worked out great. Our processes, our sequence, our scripting, everything led to both yeses. And then what if we have a doctor yes and a patient no? Obviously, out of the 4 options, that's the least desirable. However, at this point, your patient's saying no because we didn't overcome the objections that we needed to. We didn't ask the calibrated questions that got to the answer of their actual concerns. We didn't ask enough questions. We don't know what's going on with them. And one of the treatment coordinators I work with, Melissa, she's got the best thing. She's like, if all else fails, what about this isn't working for you? So if we're not asking questions like that, we're not offering the opportunity for this patient to have a conversation about finances with you. Maybe they're embarrassed, maybe you have no idea, but maybe they don't know how flexible and how affordable you can be. So the doctor yes, the patient no can obviously be flipped around very easily, and we can go back to the yes option if we follow the same path and we take care of our patients and we educate our patients and we overcome objections before we have to become defensive about overcoming the objections, so that we can educate the patient and get them into a place that says yes rather than no.
Yeah, and I think, if you're doing as you're talking about, Danielle, if you're managing the strategy, if you're managing the sequence and the scripting, the amount of times you'll run into doctor yes, patient no will get lower and lower. However, it won't go to 0, okay? So one of the things that's important, is that your office isn't for everyone. We all make decisions that sort of rules out certain patients. So us, for example, we're not currently open and don't have plans to open, if any of our team is freaking out by hearing that, but we're not open on Saturdays. Or Sundays. So there's a bucket of people out there that will only come in for Saturdays, and hey, we're not for them. We don't have Saturday appointments, right? We're also $6,000, not $3,000. So there's a bucket of people that are out there that are only in it for the lowest common price, and they're going to shop to get the lowest price no matter what. We're not for them either. That's okay. There's plenty of options out there for them now. And so you have to understand that maybe 10% or so, depending on where you're at, people aren't for you, and that's okay. But you want to make sure that if you're more than that, there's a lot of ways that you can mitigate without being pushy by building the value of your practice. And then, if someone up the street is $1,000 less than you and they offer the exact same things that you do, then you probably should look at what's going in your office, because you're not worth $1,000 more if someone is doing the exact same thing that you are for $1,000 less. But there's many things we can do from a customer service standpoint that can differentiate our office along the way.
Chris Voss wrote a great book. In fact, he even has a virtual masterclass now, which I would highly recommend. Just really great stuff. He is a FBI negotiator, and this is a really great book to read, especially when we're talking about asking calibrated questions. What sometimes a treatment coordinator can get into the room and maybe not ask for the sale because they've projected that this person maybe isn't financially secure enough for treatment. They maybe assume a lot of what's going on without asking the right calibrated questions. So I think Chris Voss says it best when he says you can approach a negotiation thinking that the other guy thinks like you. You're wrong. That's not empathy. That's projection.
So, if you've seen me talk before, I like to work Michigan football into my presentations as often as possible. And, one of the things that Danielle's helped me with is that we've kind of redesigned, and some other friends of mine, Anila Dicula, Mike Goldstein, Jeff Kozlowski, and a bunch of others have helped me think differently about the way we do our new patient process. So, if you think about old school football, whether you know it or not, it was very predictable. The coach would call the play, and then the quarterback would hand off to the running back. The guy would run, they'd get a couple yards, and they'd just repeat. And once the play was called by the coach, there was no changing the play. No matter what happened, that was just a play and you ran it. And so as offenses have evolved in football, they become different. So you don't have to, like football to hopefully get this analogy. So the person, number 8, who's circled in red, is the quarterback. Okay. So modern offenses, if they've evolved, have given the quarterback the ability to decide. So the coach will call a play, but then that play will have several options, and the quarterback can decide, the guy who's throwing the ball, number 8, can decide what is going to happen based on looking at the defense, right? And so typically there's a few different options. So number 8 can get the ball, right? And then they can run it, right? So they don't do anything else, they just run it. So that's one option. Number 8 could get the ball and hand it to number 21, and then number 21 could run it. And that's another option, which keeps the defense on their toes. And then the third option is that number 8 could take the ball and then pass it to, any of the other players on his team, hopefully not the other team. And so in football, that's called a run pass option. So there's a few different options that happen. The coach will call the play, which in orthodontics is similar to the treatment plan. And then the treatment coordinator has the ability to read the defense, the patient, to decide which way the play will evolve, which is ultimately having them start treatment. So if we think about the coach and the players, there's a few different ways. It's the same for an in-office consultation or a virtual consultation. So option number 1, when I think most of us, this is the way I was trained, if you have a treatment coordinator, they'll take the photos, they'll take the x-rays, they'll talk to the patient, and they'll say, excuse me for a minute, I'm going to go get the doctor and we'll be right back, right? And then the treatment coordinator has a little huddle up with the doctor, and then the doctor and the treatment coordinator come back into the room, and then every treatment coordinator process works the same way. So what we'll suggest is a modification of that we're calling the RPO consult, because there's multiple options, and instead of it being done by the coach, the doctor, the one calling the play, the quarterback, the treatment coordinator, has the ability to choose options. So instead of saying I'm going to go get the doctor, the treatment coordinator, Danielle, will say I'm going to go get a treatment plan verification. And so that doesn't set the expectation that the doctor will be coming in immediately. So you'll go out, you'll get the treatment plan, and then the treatment coordinator will go back into the room and they'll present the treatment plan and the fee, okay? And then one of 3 things will happen there. Number 1, the patient will same-day start. And then you'll wind up meeting the patient for the first time in the chair, with the caveat that doctors, if, in our office we have CBCTs, we have ICATs in all the offices, we take great digital pictures everywhere. So for most of the patients, I feel comfortable diagnosing those patients without actually laying hands on them. Our treatment coordinators are taught to check the TMJ, check the opening, and so we feel like we have enough information. Occasionally, I don't feel like I have enough information, and then I just need to, it's a broken play, and then I just need to go in and do a physical exam on the patient. Okay, so that clinical integrity always comes first. However, I would hypothesize if you have a CBCT and you train your treatment coordinator as well, you should be able to diagnose most of the cases without entering into the treatment coordinator room. And many times you'll see that patient, whether they're getting a scan or getting braces on at the chair. There's also a term called doctorless consults, which we're not subscribing to. So we want the doctor to be involved in the consult every single time. But we also don't believe that the traditional thinking of the doctor has to enter the consult before the patient makes a buying decision to start with that practice is always true. So we're relying on the treatment coordinator to decide. So they'll go in, present the treatment plan, present the fees, and many times about half will meet those patients after they've already made their down payment and started treatment. The second time, the treatment coordinator will let us know, hey, we need a doctor to stop in the office and say hi. The nice thing about this is that when we come in, historically, we'll go and do our spiel, and then when we're done with it, we say, is there any more questions? And we haven't talked about money. And the patient, it's like the elephant in the room, right? Like, well, yeah, we want to know about money. Some of them don't answer that, and they figure Danielle's going to tell us about it. Some of them will say, well, yeah, how much does it cost? And then we're like, whoa, hold on a minute, Ole, we kind of like stand out of the way as fast as we can and let Danielle talk about it, which is really, I think, sketchy and deceptive. So by the time we enter the room, the patient knows everything. So that when we ask, is there any more questions? They know how much down to the penny it's going to cost, what their financial options are, what the treatment plan is. And so option 1 and 2, from a doctor time perspective, really, really saves us time. So, 1 cost me 0 time besides the treatment plan. And then when I'm sitting down at the chair, putting braces on or talking to the parent, I'm telling him the same thing I would have in the consult anyway, right? But I'm doing that while I'm putting braces on. For the second step, we do pretty much go in there and say, hi, that sounds like you're interested in braces. Any questions I can ask you? And they'll say, Danielle was amazing. She told me everything. Say, awesome, give me some knuckles. And that's all they need. And then we're starting them. The third one is that they go into pending. And they would have gone into pending probably anyway. They need some time to think about it. They really do need to talk to dad. But in the process, we've been able to really maximize our conversion percentage. Doctors were really bad at talking too much. We love to talk and tell people way too much information. We give them way too much clinical information specifically, and it generates questions and concerns in the patient's minds. And so if you can let your treatment coordinator handle that, you'll wind up out of the rabbit hole. And the third thing is you wind up spending much, much less time, doctor time, in the consults using this way than the other. So if we're going to do, that's walking them through in person. We're using a platform called Doxy. Danielle, you want to show them what happens? We're going to do a virtual. So we bring them into SmileSnap, and then for the time being, unlike Dr. Waldman, we're not using the virtual feature. And we'll show you a couple of reasons why yet, but I think we will evolve to that. But we use a platform many are using called DoxyMe, and Danielle can walk through how you get an appointment that way.
Absolutely. As the scripting, the confirmation scripting ahead of time indicated that they're going to receive a link to the virtual consult. So what we'll do here is we'll enter the phone number to their phone. That brings them into our virtual consult. So we're sending them the link for the virtual waiting room. From there, what will happen is I'll go in and I'll pick them up. I'll see very quickly that they're there. I'll pick them up. We'll talk, small talk, as we would if they were in the office. I've had to kind of refrain a little bit because I sound a little stalkerish on occasion when I'm like, hey, what's that in the corner? No, that. No, so I have to really focus on the patient and the kids, but it's super still, like, we love to give compliments in our office. And I mean, that's just what we do, and it comes out so naturally and so easy that it comes that way in screen too. So it's been really nice to be able to get to know these patients virtually in the comforts of their own home, and then have them feel comfortable as well, all through this virtual consult.
Yeah, and we looked at all the different softwares like many of you, and there isn't really one perfect. Doxy has been great in the short term. I think they're overwhelmed like a lot of the virtual platforms are, so sometimes it backs up. It's certainly not perfect, but it's working well for us now. I look forward to seeing how SmileSnap evolves and some of the things that are on their roadmap to keep it in one spot. There's another company that I don't have financial interest in, but it's started by a friend of mine that I've known for 20 years called KidsDoc, which I think is also going to be an interesting platform. And so I think we'll be moving away from Doxy at one point or another, depending combination on how SmileSnap evolves. or how this Kids Doc platform evolves. And it's really slick. So keep an eye out for this name. You'll probably hear it again in the future. When Doxy happens, they do get this text message that shows up on their phone. We like text better than the email feature. So you want to take it from here, Danielle?
Yeah, because people always have their phone with them. So they're anticipating that this is going to happen. So this messaging on the left is the introduction into the treatment, the virtual treatment room. And it leads them into the next slide, which is, letting us know what patient is checking in with us. And then this is what our virtual consult looks like, right? You'll see a mom and her son as well. We can see on the right-hand side, Dr. Hines. Look at him looking all cute. I've caught a lot of great pictures of Dr. Hines that I plan to share with them eventually. And then we can see me in the upper right-hand corner. So we're all part of this virtual consult. Well, by the time that the doctors already come into the virtual consult, we've already talked about the treatment plan, because he went into Smile Snap and he looked at the pictures, evaluated based on the pictures. So this entire time I've been talking to the patient before the doctors come into the room, and we've kind of funneled down exactly what the treatment's going to look like. So by the time that the doctor comes into the room, very much like if we were in person in his office, he doesn't need to spend a lot of time there. And that's all very intentional, because our processes really aren't any different between virtual and in-office exams.
Yeah, so just to walk down the thing real quickly, the phone call happens, the patient comes into the office, we do the tour, we take the photos, we do the x-ray, the TC gets a treatment plan verification, goes back in the RPO consult style, and then presents a treatment plan and the payment plan. I think, and then for virtual, we start them with Smile Snap. Once they've entered the photos, the TC will reach out and schedule a virtual consultation. They'll begin the consultation. They'll go through all the things. They'll talk about the treatment plan. The doctor will stick their nose in for a minute. So over on the side, the doctor's there, and then the TC can then grab them and bring them in, so you can kind of three-way call. The doctor will double check from a video standpoint to make sure that the teeth and the facial profile and everything look like they do on the pictures that they've submitted. And they'll say, all right, Danielle's going to take it from here. We know that affordability is likely super important to you, so she's going to make sure that we tailor everything that fits perfect for you. Then they peace out a couple minutes. Then Danielle will finish everything. I think that we're doing it that way for now because we really don't have the option for them to come in and see a doctor in person. I think once we get back to business where they have the option of coming in person, we'll probably have the TC manage the whole process. And then the doctor will become involved when the patient comes in for a verification and start appointment to look at the x-ray, come over and say hi, sort of bless the treatment plan and everything, introduce himself and get started with everything. But for the time being, we're using the doctor. I don't think we'll continue to evolve that way. And so the next part is getting into the actual contract stuff. So, which is basically the same either way. So we're going to show you some of the features of the OrthoFi software that works. And what we've learned in all this is that OrthoFi is definitely an ambidextrous software. So, left hand, you have traditional consults in person, right hand, you have virtual consults. And the way that it's been set up, it works really well either way. So you can walk them through this form, Danielle?
I will. OrthoFi software is so intelligent. It lets me be able to focus more on the selling than the building and figuring out all of the details involved and what it does take to get a slider put together. So as you see here on the first screen, this is how we build our treatment plans with our doctors that they've already given to us. So we know who the TC is, who the doctor is, we know who the financially responsible party is going to be, and we know what type of malocclusion that the patient has, which makes the insurance processing much simpler. This is all on the same page, but I had to break it up just a bit. This identifies, with what type of treatment it is and who it's for and what the severity levels is. So, behind the scenes, we have fees and circumstances attached to all of these. And by a push of a button, I can just jump right through. And when we're doing this virtually, I can, if the doctor happened to come in the room, I'm setting this up and we're going through it as he's working it. So I'm just building this all the way as we go. I understand what their wants and their needs are. By the time I've we funneled this down. We understand what type of treatment they're most interested in. I'm not giving them a ton of different treatment options. Like Dr. Waldman had mentioned earlier, don't confuse them, just understand what's going to best help them. So as you can see, it breaks it down from step to step to step. And then in our case right now, we're offering an additional promotional courtesy, and we're able to actually put that right in the system. We can put the treatment length here as well, which keeps the financing, how long we're going to finance a patient to a minimal amount. I think that is really great. TCs, if you want to decrease the length of time. I'd love to be able to show you, and I'll show you on the slider moving forward, how we can get more of the doctor's money in-house in a shorter amount of time, just with this really cool slider that we have.
Yeah, and the really powerful part about the software kind of shows off here. So what happens is the information that we've gotten from the forms, the information that we've gotten from the insurance is already in the system. And a lot of times as a negotiation goes through, maybe a TC might have to step away and check with the doctor. The TC's job here is to put in the treatment in the treatment time, and that's pretty much it. Then the system has an algorithm that includes the insurance, so all of the insurance adjustments, or this insurance does this and that insurance does that, is all set up in the system, so the TC doesn't have to worry about any of the calculations. As soon as they press payment slider, then it'll move to the slider and populate that with the accurate information. The other thing it does is it takes their credit history into account and how long treatment is, and it changes when interest enters this scenario. And so it builds based on a couple $2 billion of money going through and seeing how all the collections worked out. We really have optimized through several different versions of the algorithm, an algorithm that maximizes those things we talk about: the ability to grow the office, the ability to manage cash flow, and the ability to mitigate risk. So when the TC doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff, they just put the stuff that they've gotten from the exam, they click payment slider, in a couple seconds, the soft credit check, the forms, the insurance, the personal information spits out the optimized payment and risk terms for them, which is super powerful. So we've gotten through the call to the consult, we've gotten through the consult to the contract. Now it's time to do the contract to the collections piece. And so regardless of which way we go, this piece works exactly the same. So Danielle either works with them in person on the with their mouse or with an iPad and allows them to manipulate the screen, or Doxy has a cool feature where she can screen share, and then they can see exactly what she's doing. She'll pull up the OrthoFi software and walk them through the same way. So we have a few different scenarios Danielle's going to walk you through on our slider. Yep, so this is where you start every time, right?
This is our treatment plan. This is what our slider looks like. You'll see over on the right-hand side, which is the treatment investment in total, their amazing insurance benefit, and their pay in full courtesy. I tend to always offer the pay in full courtesy initially for a number of reasons. I know when we start talking about doing what's best for the business, if we start lower and work our way up, it can be more difficult. And we really don't know what our patients have prepared for by the time they walk in the door. So Matt, I'll move everything over to the right-hand side. We'll talk about the additional courtesies, and then we'll leave it there. If the patient decides that they'd like to take advantage of that courtesy, fantastic. They pay in full, wonderful. Now, the second step to that is, maybe.
Let me interrupt real quick, Danielle.
Yeah.
A lot of offices will start with a down payment that they think they assume they might like, but you never really know until you ask. So we don't know who has the ability to pay in full or not. And so if you start with offering the best deal to them, which is the one that includes the pay in full courtesy, that's their best deal, and you work backwards from there. And that's really an important cash flow piece. So the more people that you can get to pay you dollars up front is going to help you to pay your bills and mitigate your risk. And then one of the things you want to do is we offer a pay in full discount at 3%, a pay in 75% at 2%, and a pay in half at 1%. So you're encouraging people to put more money down and not choose the 0% financing plan. Okay, and that's one of the strategies to help raise the amount of dollars that you bring in on day one. So sorry to interrupt there. Take it from again, Danielle. So next step, you get 2,500.
Yes, OrthoFi is so user-friendly that your treatment coordinator could easily turn the iPad around and give the patient the control of what they want to put down. The way that we tend to do it in our office is that, we sit side by side, we kind of walk through everything together. So it's really up to you. I have found that it is a more streamlined approach to go directly kind of side by side with a patient, kind of understand as we're walking through, as opposed to me giving them the controls. What we have learned from that is that, it is, you do see an increase in same day cash because of the way that you're presenting this. The reason that I'll go to $2,500 is, generally speaking, most HSA or FSAs have $2,500 in them. What folks don't know a lot of the time, they can use that for orthodontics. We'll even go as far as to say, if you'd like to pay, part this year and part next year, we can make those arrangements as well. And people really love that flexibility, but you have to be really smart about, telling them that. Maybe $2,500 wasn't for them. So we go down to $1,500. And from there, if that's not ideal, you'll ask them, what were you thinking would be a comfortable down payment? Because at that point, there's a bigger conversation to be had, and we really need to understand how we can make this as possibly affordable for them as possible. What's really great is that we can offer this with in-house financing without any fees, without any type of real processes to go around, and people really love the our ability to be there for them financially and orthodontically, and we can make this really affordable for them.
Yeah, and if you run into the fact that you're not able to talk your way solution, you can always give them a control of the mouse, and they can play around with the different scenarios to really find one that they like, because not everyone is going to be extroverted enough to tell you exactly what's in between their head or what might be affordable with them. So sometimes you can let them play with it, and they might be able to come to a plan that works for them that they'll agree to, that they might not have otherwise told you. And that's why that interest-bearing piece is so important not to eliminate, because A, you want to hedge your risk. B, you want to encourage people just gently not to put, not to make a lower monthly payment. But many people are used to paying interest, and they'll go ahead and make that if they can afford it. It really allows a larger swath of people to afford your services. So
as a side note, what I've noticed initially, because that's how I've always presented in person. So when we got to the virtual presentation, I was sharing my screen with Doxy. I thought, oh my God, am I just going to go right to $750 because that's what they want? Or I'm going to go all the way over to the right-hand side and see what happens. And what I found a couple times was that people, decided to pay in full with an office that's not open yet, and that we're going to see, we're really not sure when. So I guess the reason that I wanted to slow down and say that is because you never know what somebody's thinking. In a time like this, they're looking and planning, and their perspective or projection of things might be different than ours. So you always want to ask, because that's what's in the best interest of the patient, because it's the best deal for them, but it's also what's in the best interest of your practice.
yeah, and that really breaks down the intelligent flexibility versus the rote flexibility. So you want to be flexible, but only for the people that you need to be. And then if you're going to arrange your offerings, you want to start with the ones that are favorable to your office and your cash flow. And so you don't have to do that, but why not start there? You never know who's going to say yes. So one thing that's cool, OrthoFi pivoted its product roadmap, and a lot of people were asking for the sign at home feature. So you can now do a DocuSign type feature, so they can sign from home, or people can do pending. So kudos to the OrthoFi product and development team. They turned that around very quickly. We didn't have that scheduled to be out till later in the year, but they added it here. And then there's a pending management feature. If they don't say yes, there's a follow-up tab. And OrthoFi can see who uses this and who doesn't, because the number and follow-up will get humongous, and they'll know that you're not using it versus the one that are interacting with the software. And whether you're using it the right way or not, if you're just using it, you have an 18% higher conversion rate if you're managing things using this follow-up tab. So a lot of people say, oh, OrthoFi is expensive, but they don't even use the follow-up tab. And if they just use that one aspect of the software, they'd get 18% higher conversion, which would pay for it 10 times over. So just make sure, if you're going to use whatever software it is, SmileSnap, OrthoFi, or whatever else, that you're using the system as designed. You take the time to learn about it, because that's the only way you can maximize at a high level. And I'm going to give a kudos to Danielle. So I told you I was really late to the virtual consult game, and I didn't think that it would be valuable or that we'd be able to convert from a virtual standpoint. But from the first day we did them on March 26th through April 24th, Danielle's hitting 52 out of 54, including 20 new patient starts, and the rest recall and ops patients, 96%. So, Danielle is exceptional, no doubt. But she's just doing the things that we are showing you. And she's had a huge hand in developing this process. And you can convert patients virtually. And I think this is going to be a really important thing for us moving forward. So to finish up, this is a great book by Simon Sinek, and it's called The Infinite Game. He talks about two types of games. There's a finite game, which is played for the purpose of winning. There's rules, boundaries, announces winners or losers. And so if you're playing a game, this game has a finish line, like football or basketball. The game is over, and then you decide a winner or a loser. The infinite game lives on forever, and success can survive for generations. So if you're playing a game without a finish line, winning is not possible. There is no fourth quarter. And so if you want to build a business that serves the generations, you really can't find yourself looking at one individual patient. In fact, if you ever find yourself making a decision to sell that one patient, whether it's matching your competitor or whatever it might be, you're really playing the short game. You're playing the finite game. What you should be doing is building your business to treat everyone like family, to build it on integrity, and to build it on a strong strategic foundation, which cares about the patient, which allows flexible financing, and has really well thought through and proven sequences and scripting. And so if you put those things in place, you'll find that the short-term success that you're looking for will increase, and you'll be able to build a business that lives on forever, and one that you can, continue to work in and hand down. So we want to thank you for your time. Thank you to the amazing and incredible Danielle for all of her contributions to this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reynolds and Danielle. That was a fabulous session. Our next speaker has a really great presentation on marketing techniques.